obviously, every time that quote is made, I'm sure the devil just licks his lips. Because he would love to introduce that man to this world system. And one day that is going to happen. But, you know, you got to understand, that spirit is working now in the religious realm. When you consider that when Jesus was on this planet, one of his biggest hindrances and fighters were the religious. It were people who were claiming to love God. Matter of fact, at one point, Jesus offended them great when he says, you know what you are? You are of your father, the devil. I mean, he told them exactly what, he says, you know what you're doing? Everything you're doing is being motivated by something behind you. There's something forcing you men acting like this. And I'll tell you what it is. He says, it's the devil. You're doing the deeds of your father.
That's right.
Now, I want you to listen because it's quite interesting. Back just about a year ago, the Vatican made an official statement and says that it calls for the end of what's called Israel's occupation. Bishops from the Middle East who were summoned to Rome by the Pope demanded on Saturday that Israel accept UN resolutions calling for the end to its occupation of Arab lands. Listen to what the statement goes on to say. In a final joint communique, the bishops also told Israel it shouldn't use the Bible to justify injustices against the Palestinians. Here's what they said. Quoting now from the leaders, we're talking the leaders of the world, the religious system. The Holy Scripture cannot be used to justify the return of Jews to Israel. This is coming from, now listen folks, when you think of Christianity, most of you are thinking what you go to, but most of the world thinks of Christianity, thinks of Catholicism. It's representing 1 billion people in the world. Okay? It says, the Holy Scriptures cannot be used to justify the return of the Jews to Israel and the displacement of the Palestinians, to justify the occupation by Israel of Palestinian lands, which we'll address this in just a moment, but listen what he says. We Christians cannot speak of the promised land as an exclusive right to a privileged Jewish people. This promise was nullified by Christ. Listen to the statement. There is no longer a chosen people. All men and women of all countries have become the chosen people. Now I want you to understand, the enemy puts just enough truth to make it feasible. And if you look on a little box of rat poisoning, you'll find that it's 0.0005%. That's 5,000% of poison. It's 99.9995% true. Good, healthy for the little rat. But it's that 5,000th of a bit that will kill us. I want you to understand something. These men are teaching heresy that has come off as truth, even among full gospel churches. I've seen this beginning to be taught. And I want you to understand, the statement about we're all chosen, obviously, you and I as Gentiles have been grafted in. But Paul goes on to say, but don't boast in this. I mean, this is God's grace is what it is. Blindness in Israel is in part for us, for our advantage. But I want you to notice very carefully that the only time you're going to find the phrase the chosen ones, you're going to find it located in a particular passage, and it's very clear what he's talking about. Look at 1 Chronicles 16. Remember his marvelous works that he had done, his wonders, and the judgments of his mouth. Watch now. O ye seed of, help me, Israel, his servant, ye children of Jacob, his chosen ones. Now watch. He is the Lord our God. His judgments are in all the earth. Now watch this statement. Be ye mindful always of his what? Covenant. Okay, now covenant is a phrase that we don't really use a lot as Americans. A covenant is something that is even stronger than an agreement. This is something where it's going to be binding regardless of what happens. God will not change his mind when he makes a covenant. It is final. But it says, be ye mindful always of his covenant, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations. Now, by the way, that's not yet come and gone yet. Okay, so we're talking something that's bypassing us. He says, even of the covenant which he made with who? And his oath unto who? And he hath confirmed the same to Jacob for a what? A law. And to Israel, how long of a covenant? So God has not, thank you buddy, God has not changed his mind about his covenant with Abraham, his oath with Isaac, his law with Jacob. It's verified to be an everlasting covenant. And with that said, let's go on and show you something that's very interesting. Saying unto thee, will I give the what? Land. Okay, now folks, listen, that's the part of the covenant. It's an eternal covenant. The land of Canaan, the lot of your inheritance. Now, let me just tell you something. People say, but John, that's no longer, that's the Old Testament. God has rejected the Jews. He's done with them forever. Now, if that's true, then God is now a liar. And if God can't keep his word for the Old Testament Jews, then how do you think you can rely that God's going to keep his covenant and his promise to the New Testament Christian? But let's look at this. If this is not enough to verify, watch what it says. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for light by day, and the ordinances, and the word there means they're fixed order. These bodies in the heavens are set for an appointment. And he says, the Lord that's put the sun up in the sky, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the seas where the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. Now watch. If, everybody say if those ordinances depart from before me. In other words, if the sun stops rising, if the moon stops rising, if the stars vanish from the sky, if there's no more moon, no more sun, then guess what? If that happens, listen what he says, if the ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me. Well, let me ask you a question. Did the sun rise today?
Yes.
Well, then, God says, as long as that's still happening, I'm still with Israel. Okay? Now, if the moon shows up, you walk outside and see some stars, then guarantee 50 years from now, you can locate where the sun's going to be at a particular time, and the moon's going to be at a particular time, the star's going to be, because it's a fixed order. God says, that's how straight and how fixed my covenant is. Now, he goes on and says something else. He says, thus saith the Lord. If that's not good enough for you, let me give you another one. If, everybody say if heaven above can be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, then guess what I'm going to do? If you go ahead and do that, I tell you what, I'll go ahead. He says, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they've done, saith the Lord. You know, I have to agree with you. I've been kind of disappointed that they've done this all stuff. So you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. If you can go ahead and count the heavens, if you go get that all measured out, once you get that job done, then you come and bring me the report, and I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and quit on Israel. Now, in case you don't know, that has not yet happened. Okay? One of the neatest things that I saw not too long ago, matter of fact, Josiah and I had an opportunity a few months ago to go see a 3D version of the Hubble telescope in IMAX. It was astonishing. I absolutely love this stuff. Anyway, when the IMAX was talking about the Hubble telescope, the Hubble telescope has been out there for a long time now, and it's brought us some absolutely astonishing revelations of God's wonderful creation of the heavens. Yeah. One of the first things that they did is when they sent the Hubble out, they found this region that no one has ever seen anything because it's so dark. No telescope on the planet Earth was able to see anything because it was just this darkened area. So they wanted to find out after they're outside, this region around the Earth. What's the word I'm thinking of? Atmosphere. Yeah. They could see clear, and they stuck that on there. And guess what? They left that lens open for days, thinking that it would help bring in the light of what was out there. Nothing's ever been seen. The next image you're getting ready to see was what they saw. The first time any human beings on the planet ever saw anything. And what you're seeing there, not one star is none of those things are stars. Everything you're seeing there are in complete galaxies. Galaxies that have hundreds of millions of stars. Now, if you just tried to count the stars in the Milky Way galaxy, if you started right now and you went 1, 2, 3, 4, and every second you would go by, you know what? It would take you 60,000 years of counting a star every second. It'd take you 60,000 years to count all the galaxies just in our little tiny Milky Way. We're talking, everything you see there are all gigantic galaxies, some of them dwarfing the Milky Way galaxy. And God says, when you figure out the numbers of those people, of those planets, of those stars, then guess what? You bring me the report, and I'll say, okay, I'm done with this. But you know what, don't you? We have this strange spirit that has showed up even in the church now, that is trying to say Israel doesn't have a right to exist. Matter of fact, this was just earlier this year when Pope Benedict met with the Palestinian president, and he met there at the Vatican, and he says that Israel, that, obviously it's urgent, he says, that the Palestinian state and Israel live in security and peace with neighbors, which can only be brought about through an independent Palestinian state, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, means that they get Jerusalem. Matter of fact, I wish you would have been able to hear some of the stuff that Sherlock was saying as he's talking about the areas that would be taken away from us. And I'm going to have him say some stuff later on about Israel, and you can mention that if you would, about what that means. What's taken away from us. Some people don't understand just how detailed this is. Going back to those pre-67 borders, which, by the way, came from our president making that statement. Soon, the state of Israel and the Palestinian state must live in security, at peace with their neighbors, and within international recognized borders. Now, you know what, folks?